we have fairly recently released our ridiculously overlong 20-hour, 10-part review of Quantum of Solace. I've not even finished listening to it yet, so I'm amazed that some of you have. And you will receive a trophy through the post if you do manage to finish till the end. But it isn't the end. We've had a couple of interviews of people in the film, and we're now going to have a debate. Now, don't worry, we're all friends here. No one's going to fall out. We do have probably quite differing views on the film, and we want to explore some elements of them tonight. So it isn't a review, and it's not a celebration. You know, we have an anniversary celebration for the anniversary films, which Quantum will be 20 in 2 years, won't it? So we may have changed our minds further by then. But for now, we're just going to open the floor and just sort of explore, first of all. And we've got some esteemed guests with us tonight, so I'll introduce them first. So from our podcast, we've got John and Matt. Good evening to you guys.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good to see you guys. And, you know, Rob isn't here, so you're already... a quantum hater is produced on the output. Yes, not sure. No. Also, we have 3 guests, so we're hoping that they can add to this lively debate. We know they will. David Zaritsky, who's been on a few times before, so great to see you, David, from the Bond Experience.
Thank you for having me to represent.
Oh,
I won't give up which side I'm on. You'll just have to guess it.
I'm really hoping you are on one side, David, at the moment, isn't he? We've also got Jeroen, Dutch Bond fan, coming from the Netherlands. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thanks for having me as well. And I hope we'll all still be friends after this debate.
I'm sure we will, Jeroen, yes. The final guest, we haven't had on before, but we've had a lot of his great friends from Ireland. It's John Goeghagan. So welcome from across the shores, John.
Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me. Yeah, John Goeghagan, I'm part of JBCI. So obviously friends with the lads, Paul and the lads from the podcast. So I was lucky enough to be on the first one on GoldenEye, so delighted to be joining in here today. The controversial ones are always the best ones to discuss, aren't they?
I think so. I would say this. Do you think this and Die Another Day are the most divisive Bond films?
Not at all.
No Time to Die.
Oh gosh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, no, because most people are pretty on one side of that argument, aren't they? Really?
I don't know.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway,
right. More that people are defending it, but I think it's becoming in vogue to defend it. Maybe. Who knows?
Yes. Well, Quantum isn't defending the indefensible. Don't worry. This is slightly different. Yeah, so just to start, I mean, I won't go to John and Matt first because we've heard their views ad nauseum. We'll start with Jeroen because I'm not absolutely sure. Just take us through your history with the film.
2008, when it came out, I was 18 at the time. It baffled me that you said like in 2 years, it's going to be 20 years ago already. It feels like not that long ago, 2008, but I guess it is. And I remember going to the cinema to see it, and I wasn't really ready to admit to myself that I didn't like everything about it because, you know, at first you're just excited. A new Bond, and Daniel Craig still felt so new at the time. You know, we only had Casino Royale, which was great. And then I walked out of the cinema, and it was one of the first Bond films where I was not really able to follow the plot at first glance. But I was with some friends who were just casual fans, and they were like, well, what did you think? And I was trying to be really positive. There is still some nuance to it. I still like elements of it. But then as the years went by, I just started to realize, there's always merit to Bond films. There's so much to defend about it, and no Bond film is perfect. But for me, with Quantum, there are more elements I just don't like. And I think that the writer's strike played a role in it. We'll probably dive deeper into that later. And also, I remember, maybe you guys felt the same, the fast editing at the time. It felt so fast. And I was telling myself, whoa, it's 2008, you know, we're in the modern times now. So this is probably how it should be. But now in retrospect, looking at it, it still feels way too fast. At least some of the shots. And I'm sure we'll we'll delve deeper into it. But that's a little brief history of how it started for me back in 2008.
That's really interesting, and you're absolutely right, Jeroen. You've predicted some of the debating points, which I will be raising further. Editing is certainly one. We won't start with that just yet because the first one I'm going to introduce is quite an interesting point, actually. John, I have absolutely no idea whether this is one of your favourites or one of your least favourites. So go ahead, mate.
Yeah, so I came to this in 2008. We were actually traveling backpacking in Thailand with my girlfriend, now wife at the time. So we actually seen it in a Thai cinema for the first time. So you have to stand up for the anthem and all that kind of thing. So it was definitely it was definitely a memorable year. We visited James Bond Island because we were in Thailand at the time as well. So that was obviously memorable. We were backpacking at the time, and every store I went into had the Quantum Omega. So we were backpacking, and it was, I don't know, $20 or $30 a night, where we're trying to stretch out the budget. Yeah. But every airport we went into, my wife would see me looking at these Omega watches for like 5,000 or 6,000 euros, and she's like, "Are you going to buy a 5,000 euro watch with the backpacking budget we're on?" And I'm like, "I'm just window shopping, okay." So every time I see that Quantum Omega, I'm always kind of have a smile on my face about this $5,000 watch I was going to wear in a $20 hostel, but. We seen it in Thailand, so it was very memorable. When I seen it originally, I obviously loved Casino Royale. I wasn't knowing what to expect. When I came out of it, I was a little bit like, a lot of the tropes and the nuances that make Bond so subtle were a little bit out. I think they got that a little bit better when they got to Spectre. Just being able to marry some of the toughness of Bond with the little tropes and little subtleness we expect from Bond. But the further on I watched it, I was kind of like, it kind of got better for me, actually, with time. It's one of those ones, kind of when you look through the full canon, it's kind of got better and better. A lot of the storylines and a lot of the elements that they introduced at the time are still relevant. There's still a look back and a fondness for that kind of tough, hardcore Bond kind of that we see, from this Quantum version versus kind of more recent versions that will say, actually, this is the Bond I prefer. He's a tough guy. There's no messing about. He's on a mission. No one's getting in his way. He shows it in the action scenes were fantastic. I was obviously, like everyone, like the transformation Daniel went to get in shape for this role. I think he was an absolute role model from me. I was about my early 20s at this stage. So seeing this guy, from Casino to Quantum, in absolute physical shape, was just something that was like aspirational from my perspective, and it just kind of really added depth to the character, and that he could really handle himself. It was one of these one-offs, but I look back with a bit of fondness now, and I'm looking forward to getting through some of the debating points now as we go through. But that was my '08 experience in Thailand. Yeah.
There you go. See, that's pretty positive, John. That's good.
Yeah.
And now David will follow on from that positivity.
Well, first of all, John, I've always liked the Irish. The Dutch, not so much. Just to kind of I love me some Jeroen. He's my brother. So we'll all leave friends. I was ruined, probably like John with Quantum of Solace, because I went to the United States premiere, and I was asked to put on a prop display at the premiere. So security guard, display, champagne. They could have showed me a burning bag of poop, and I probably would have been like, this was an amazing film. So, I always feel like, the environment that you're put in, the situation you're put in when you watch a Bond film for the first time really influences you for a very long time. But I will say, to defend Jeroen, when I first watched it, and it sat with me for a few weeks afterwards, I was a little let down. And I think the biggest thing that I was let down was I was expecting, yes, a continuation of Casino Royale, but something just like Casino Royale. And this, I came to realize, and it took me a while. I think, John, you're saying the same thing. It took me years to realize that this is never meant to be a standalone romp, that it's almost like it's an emotional second act to Daniel Craig's James Bond's origin story. And that's why I love it so much. And I've grown to like it. I don't see it as a Bond film. I see it as a 1.5 of Casino Royale. As if somebody said, you know something, we're going to give you an amazing film add-on that you can plug and play that we filmed. We just never showed it to you. And this whole idea of Bond's transition from this wounded person to this emotionally compartmentalized badass, because he's badass. This is how Bond becomes this cold, calculating assassin that could kill anybody, really comes true in Quantum of Solace. It's a little less in Casino Royale. Casino Royale is his journey. You could almost say he's a romantic in Casino Royale. It is Quantum where he becomes the Bond that we emulate, whether it's style, fashion, badass. So yes, we're going to get into the things that needle us, the things that we're like, I'm going to throw up, I'm dizzy. But I almost forgive the trespasses of that because it's such a good study of who James Bond is.
Goodness me. So much opened up from that. John's face is instant.
The style, I never even mentioned the style. Like the style is easily the best of all the Craigs.
I think we should start with that because that is a less contentious thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll go into the character and the editing and all that later. Bond's style, his look, first of all. I know if you've heard our review, we might have had a go at the mini sunglasses, John, and Math.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks good, but he'd look good if he was in an Oasis video, not necessarily as James Bond.
Oh dear!
I'm not sure from the UK guys. Did you grow up watching the Fast Show when you were in the Nancy show?
Yeah.
So you remember these guys that used to work in the department store and someone would try something on and go, "Oof, suits you, sir." Yeah. So every time I'm watching this, I'm like thinking of the Fast Show. Oof, all the different outfits he's on. Physically, he's in peak shape for his late 30s at that stage. He just brought it to another level, like a cardigan, like a Bond wearing a cardigan. Paul Lally, I keep telling him to get himself one of those shawl cardigans because that look and the scene of him in Italy in the back of the boat, with the sunglasses on, fantastic. Like it's easily the best Craig style. I'd watch it for the style alone nearly,
When I referenced the sunglasses, I meant the ones in Haiti. Don't worry, we like the look. I think we all like the look in Italy when he visits.
Yeah, the bootcut jeans is probably the only thing that didn't probably carry through. 20 years on.
They're the same sunglasses, by the way.
Oh, are they right?
Of course
they don't go
with
the outfit then, David.
They're a 50 millimeter Tom Ford G37.
Right.
I mean, I think. But,
you're not going to get some out from the back,
Yeah, I got them like within hand's reach. But I think what happened, to John's point, is there was going to be a winning formula. Luis Frogli, who was the costume designer, patterned a lot of the look after a more athletic, slimmed down.
He was, wasn't he?
Yeah, but it was Steve McQueen that was on her front and center. So you had the shawl cardigan, you had the crisp white shirts, you had the Harringtons, you had all these things that you had seen in the Thomas Crown Affair in the Steve McQueen version of that. So it was going to look the part, but then they trimmed it down. It was the first time Tom Ford was engaged. And Tom Ford, lo and behold, took the same impetus, which was Steve McQueen. So you don't get more style icon than Steve McQueen. And I actually like Craig's build in this film better than in Casino Royale. He looked too much like an action figure in Casino Royale, totally implausible. But in this, he's like a slim down, he's like Jeroen. He's like a slim down, good shape guy. See, there's love. But I will say this, it is the style that has launched more Harrington jackets, more looks. People try to emulate the suits, the tuxedo. There really isn't a bad Bond look in the group. And I think that's why it's universally heralded as next to some of the Connery ones as far as iconic.
Yeah, fashion aged well in this film. I'm curious if you guys have this too, because your channel is so synonymous with Bond's fashion that now in retrospect, when I'm watching Quantum, I'm always reminded of you. And maybe you guys have it too, but I recorded my reaction with lyrics to the movie like a couple of years ago. It's still not public because we pre-recorded it before No Time to Die. But I say somewhere in the video, like, "Oh, this, it just looks like David Tritsky in this." Well, it's the other way around, but you're so reminded by David in this, which I guess is a compliment, because Bond does look great in this film. And also, speaking of the style of the film, you also notice that this must have been a conscious choice. They have like the whole film has a color palette, right? It's like whites and blacks and browns, but also in all of the scenes, it's very very conscious in the way they did that. Like all the outfits of all the characters and all the sets as well, they all kind of have this color palette. I think.
Yeah. Like he's wearing a fabulous suit on the plane over, right? So who wears a suit on a plane anymore? Like, you know,
it gets a bit battered though, doesn't it? As he goes on, he has to go overnight with it, doesn't he?
He has to go overnight. Like he's on a plane. He's fully suited out, a Tom Ford suit, like.
But that's a great point. Is that that's the frivolousness that a lot of people say, "Oh, Quantum's too real. It's too earthbound." But that's the craziness of James Bond. He's like in Diamonds Are Forever. He's wearing a tuxedo in Vegas when everybody else is wearing, jean shorts.
Yeah.
That's the bombastic, version of this style that you find here.
I think Chris particularly as well thinks Daniel Craig. He does look more at home maybe in like the looser clothes. Like the action scene when he gets to Haiti.
Yeah.
So good with that polo top and the beige trousers. That's probably the ultimate look for me, for Daniel.
Yeah. I actually do prefer what Daniel Craig looks like, probably out of a suit or a tux. I do agree with you, David, about his build. Just seems a little bit better in this film. Not quite as big, and he looks like he doesn't necessarily stick out from the public with his build, but you still think he's a hard man and everything. But yeah, I like some of the more sort of smart casual stuff in this, and I know we talked about his hair in our review quite a lot, because I don't think you can do an awful lot with Daniel Craig's hair because it's quite sort of light. He could never have a parting, really. Sometimes, it's been a bit, when it's been longer, he's been able to do it, but as Bond, it's usually been a bit shorter, and I know some people think it was possibly too short in Skyfall, but I actually quite like it at the end when he's looking bruised and battered, and also when they're walking across the desert and they look a bit bruised and battered. I think he carries that quite well.
It's the best look. It is. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
because his hair is kind of like a little. It almost looks like it's sticking up. Because you're right. I mean, the joke is I've done a couple of videos where I get the Casino Royale haircut, the Quantum haircut. It's the same damn haircut. That's the secret. But if you do this and give it a little like poke, I agree. I think he looks better battered and bruised for sure.
Yeah, and even Skyfall, I really like his look at the end when he's in the sort of more barber jacket with the almost like a country, an English country look or whatever. I think that looks really good as well. So,
are you okay with the fact that he wore jeans quite a bit in this film? He wore it with no shirt on with Strawberry Field, and he wears it later in the film.
Yeah, I mean, they're not overtly, unless I'm just not. They're not overtly, blue wash denim jeans, are they? Like your typical.
I mean, they're blue indigo jeans, denims. Yeah,
really.
Oh yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah, made by Ralston. Right. Yeah,
I didn't quite realize that. Maybe it's the filter on the camera that makes them,
The editing's too quick to notice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, this is good though. This is positive. You see.
Yeah, but apparently, and he tailored his physique for to be more athletic, right? So he'd done more kind of plyometric based training to get ready for the stunts and all the action. But he said after that he was more bruised than he was from any of the stuff they'd done in Casino. It was a walk in the park compared to this. But you can really see how you need to prepare your body and to be in that physical shape for some of the action stunts you've done.
That leads us to the next thing: the action. One of the more frenetic Bond films, certainly. And so I reckon the first half of the film is almost chase, mixed with a bit of leads, information, plot, chase. It's so quick fire that I think the first few times I watched it, I was like, well, I need a breather. This is too much. I actually think it works better when you watch it at home on the smaller screen, because I watched it again for the 60th anniversary in 2022. And I think, when you're sat in front of that huge screen, it was just a little bit too much until you got to the nice, cozy scenes like on the plane, like we've discussed. John, the action, you're probably the least defending of some of the. It goes into the editing as well, but in terms of the action set pieces.
No, I'd say it's more the editing that's the issue. I think, like when you've got the Sienna action scene, it's a brilliant chase scene. There's lots of amazing stunt work going on. It's brilliant. I just struggle with the editing of it. I think I've said it on the review. It feels like the movie equivalent of going on a waltzer. You're just spinning round and round all the time, and it's very similar to the editing in stuff like Taken 2. And it feels that kind, and the Bourne films, especially like the later Greengrass ones. It's not my style, but that's not to say that the action isn't good. I mean, we praised I think the plane scene is outstanding. I absolutely love that scene, and I actually think the end battle's really great as well. It's just I'm probably not going to be the person who's going to go on about how amazing it is because it feels what shall I say? I'm not sure it feels too much like Bourne and other franchises than rather having that Bond stamp on it. That's my personal view.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that too. Did you know that Mark Forsythe, he actually had like the 4 elements based on on his 4 action scenes. Like there's like earth, wind, fire, water. He had some artistic choices behind that. I think the editing, like John said, is definitely a problem, but it's also, it seems like all of the action scenes start really abrupt. Like there's never, like in the classic Bond films, where there is a build-up, where a character is lurking and the music is starting to build up, something is coming. Here, it's like with the plane, he's having a conversation with Camille, bam, he's attacked, and the action is there, which is cool. Sometimes you're like, oh, action, which could be cool, but it's like every single scene, the action is very abrupt. The editing, it sometimes really makes no sense. Sometimes what has actually happened. I saw some videos on analyzing the water action scene where he throws the anchor into the boat. Even when you slow it down, it really doesn't make any sense what is happening to the boat and how the anchor is lifting it up. You look at it because it goes so fast, and you just assume, oh, he had an anchor and he stopped the boat, and it probably made sense. But when you slow it down, it's luckily you don't have any time to think about it, right? Because it goes so fast. However, again, there is nuance. I do enjoy a lot of the action too, and it's more of the editing, because some of it is really impressive. I like the opening scene, by the way. The bad guys are driving the car that I drive at home, the Alfa Romeo, which I'm a big fan of the Alfa Romeo. It's my car too. Even back then, I was like, I'm getting that car when I grow up. Here I am. It's not as impressive as it sounds, by the way. They don't go for any high prices anymore, but it's still a car I love that the bad guys drive. Saritsky drives the main one, of course. It's
this one.
We should recreate it.
Yeah, I think Saritsky, he said in one of my videos, I did like a top 10 Bond cars, and you said like we should totally recreate it, and then we'll do Darlington in the booth, like for the like,
hey, David, does your Aston Martin DBS only have one door on it as well?
But it does now. It's been a tough winter, so yeah.
The editing didn't really bother me. Like, I know it bothers a lot of people, but for me, it's something different from a Bond film, right? You're getting straight into the action, like that opening scene where you're coming across the water. The music is building up, and then you get machine guns, you get the car V8 noise revving. Like, for me, it is very fast paced, but it's just something different from a Bond. Like, why not give it a go? It is an hour and 46 minutes or something. It's the shortest Bond ever. Why not have pace that's lightning quick? From my perspective, like some of the stuff I didn't catch up either, like the M being shot. I didn't figure that out one either. I totally get the one with the hook, but I mean, like, it doesn't bother me that much that it's going to affect my my enjoyment of the film. If anything, it's something different from the Bond film. I know they were doing the whole Bourne thing and the shaky cam, But I mean, like when you're doing, he has that fight right in the hotel in Haiti. Like it feels like you're right in there with him at the fight. Like it's very visceral. Like it's very bloody. You're right up and close with him. So from my perspective, it doesn't bother me at all. From if anything, it's something different from a Bond film. It's showing the harder edge Bond, and like why not? Like why not have something different from it? And I know it's not perfect. I think they had 130 days from wrap to the premiere. I think it wrapped in the end of June, and the premiere was in October. So 130 days. In terms of post production, it sounds like a crazy schedule. So I'm sure when they look back at it, there might be stuff they would have done different. But like if I got a Bond like this every 2 years with that kind of that form, it wouldn't bother me. But I think, John, you had a good point in your review. You say, would we have 20 of these? Would we have the longevity of 20 fast-paced Bonds with lightning quick editing? I don't think so, and I don't think we'd have, the longevity. I think it's a nice one-off, and we'll do something different for this Bond. But could you do it? Could you do another 5 the exact same formula? I don't think so. But I still think it's nice to have that one-off where we do have something different.
Yeah.
You mentioned that fight. By the time you've heard this, we've interviewed Slate, the man himself.
Oh wow,
Neil Jackson. So that was really interesting that he told us about how the fight was filmed. John was on that with me. So that's given us a new appreciation for that scene, certainly. I think that's a good point. I think Chris said it in our review that at the time when it came out, 2006, 2008, it's like, even if it's not your favourite Bond, you've got one coming the next 2 or 3 years. And it means the style, of course. Well, we're not going to necessarily have this style for the next film because Mark Forster's probably not going to do another one. So it's it just all depends where it fits in the series.
It's like we had Kung Fu for 74 for Man with the Golden Gun. You're probably not going to have 10 James Bonds with Kung Fu style, but it's still a nice one-off Man with the Golden Gun to watch in its own merits as well,
I don't think I'm as bothered as I was about the, shaky cam, quick editing and everything. It's probably, I absolutely wouldn't want every Bond film to be like this. That you can't please me though in some regards, because particularly Spectre, I feel a lot of it's too slow. And so, it's like, they linger too long on some shots when there's supposed to be pace and action and all that. I actually like a lot of the intention of the action set pieces in this film. The car chase I think is decent. It's probably not it's not my favourite in the series, but I think it's decent. The chase through Sienna and everything, and the fight with Slate are a little bit more Bourne, but they're entertaining. It's good action, and then the boat chase on the water, on the plane, and then the end scene is a really good idea, and I like a lot of it. I think probably some of the editing choices that jar with me more now are I know you're saying about they've got 130 days to edit it. Well, you didn't really then need to focus on the thing going on in Sienna, in the middle of all the going for that more, I don't know, almost like an arty. I think I said it in the review, like Terrence Malick films where you cut to the environment in the middle of it. And also, because I do like the opera scene as well, but when it suddenly is cutting, where the sound effects drop out and he comes face to face with him and stuff, it's probably not really what I want in my Bond film. I can cope with quick action and editing and stuff, in 1 or 2 around this time. But I probably think that's the director trying to show off a little bit too much, in my opinion. But I have grown to appreciate the action in this film more, and sort of appreciate it alongside other Bond action set pieces, not just think, oh, this is just some one-off, that it doesn't belong. They are a lot of the time very Bond action set pieces.
I mean, sometimes are we being a bit precious with the style of Bond? A bit like football teams, we want them to play, the West Ham way and all this nonsense. But whereas, like, if Mission Impossible, the first few, you expected completely different style in each one. So sometimes you think, like, these scenes, if it was in an Mission Impossible film, this style of editing, this type of filmmaking, that would be more accepted by fans because it was just a one-off. But at the time, I think it was too much, and it is a personal choice. And I think that is a subjective viewpoint. Personally, I can understand the criticism, and some of them clearly is the editing. But one thing we have to say is it's all filmed on location pretty much, or on a soundstage. You know, it's all real. I know there's a couple of shots when they fall through the roof in Siena at the end.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, this is stuff that they didn't really do enough of in particularly No Time to Die. A lot of that felt more studio and a bit more CGI than this. I think whatever you think, you've got to give it credit. And that opening car chase feels more real than any other, perhaps.
I think there is this strange thing that happens with this film over time. I'm wondering if everybody else feels the same way. I mean, when I first saw this, I thought, oh, okay, style over substance from an editing and even action standpoint. Over time, though, I realized that if I'm going to buy into the fact that this is a more brutal and kinetic Bond, that the editing, the action is more brutal and kinetic. I mean, it's almost like it's reflecting Bond's mental state, the way he fights. Yeah. And Jeroen put it very well. These things start so quickly, but that is the reaction. The opera, for example, in Brigands, is such a highly stylized view, but there's something that happens over time. The more you watch this film, the more the editing starts to smooth out. And I think it's our brain starts to actually put frames in that don't exist. Because now when I watch Quantum of Solace, I sort of look back on the David Zaritsky from 2008 going, yo, Schnook, what were you talking about? It's smooth as ice. Look at this. And I don't know what it is, but I think my brain is making it a 2 hour and 20-minute film out of an hour and 40-minute film.
Yeah, I've said that as well many times. I'd love to see a 2 hour version of it where some of it will be stretched out and allowed to breathe. Because let's be honest, I mean, that leads to another thing. The locations. There's so many amazing locations in this.
Oh, yeah.
That maybe it would have been nicer to spend a bit more time, say, with Mathis for that scene, on top of the roof there. Yep. And, but other ones, Bond's carbon footprint is a disaster, isn't it, in this? Because he's going all the way from Europe to South America, Haiti, back again, and, all these places. But this is what we want from a Bond film, don't we? And I like David and I've been to Siena, which is a perfect Bond location, And you've been to Brigands, haven't you, quite recently?
Just recently there. I've actually been to most of the places except for Chile, but I'll say this about the locations. I think it does let it breathe. I mean, yes, obviously, but where you are, and you're actually there. It's not a made-up place, but I was just watching Tomorrow Never Dies, which I'm a huge fan of, with my niece, and she had a really great observation. She goes, the locations were fine, but they don't give you any time to breathe. You're suddenly just in the location and things are happening, whereas Mark Forster really seems to have a love affair with locations. So you have this setup of at least 15 to 30 seconds of, hey, everybody, take a look at this speedboat approaching, or look at this, we're going towards the bridge where he's driving along the lake, Garta. I do think that there is an appreciation, and I love that about Bond films. My favorite ones, like You Only Live Twice, make love to the locations as much as they do to the Bond girl. That was... Sorry.
Well said.
What other Bond films do we hear the taxi driver giving out about some of the social problems in the country?
Oh, yeah. Good exposition, that. Yeah.
But that's one of the best scenes in the film, because it's clever, isn't it, in terms of it's exposition of the film as well, and yet it comes across like it's a nuisance, and that's some really clever writing there.
Check out all our other episodes, reviews, interviews, features, location visits. Simply search Really 007 James Bond Podcast. We're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many more. We're also on social media, the main sites of Instagram, Facebook, and X. For added quantum content, then look no further than our 20-hour, 10-part review, which goes into nauseating detail on the film. As if that wasn't enough, we've also got 2 interviews so far from actors in the film, Fernando Guillen-Cuervo, who played the Colonel, and we've also got an interview with Neil Jackson, who played henchman Edmund Slate. I know Bond's character we'll go into might not be as aspirational, but the places he goes to, the things he visits and all that, this is probably my favourite of the Daniel Craigs, I'd say.
And he uses his environment better than any other Daniel Craig location things. Even just, I mean, who doesn't get amazing douche chills when he climbs on the outside of the hotel? In some ways, it's better than Inspector when he's climbing on the outside of a hotel, when he's sort of on that shelf and you hear the music, the David Arnold music, and the way that's paired together. To me, it evokes an emotion. So, yeah.
We won't go into the music in great depth, but David Arnold's score, he sort of got rid of a lot of the electronica. It's a proper orchestral piece that suits the film perfectly, I think.
The opera is one of the best.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. We might hear it in London, we're hoping.
Yeah.
That's a plug for Cue the Music, by the way. Anyway, onto something a bit more controversial. Should the film have started, 10, 20 minutes after the end of Casino Royale? There you go. And as a sort of caveat to that question, were you happy that it ended how it ended, or do you think they should have done another one within this story arc? Because I know we jumped to Skyfall when he's too old. I think everyone would love a film in between those, obviously. But would you have liked this style to continue? So that's two questions within one. Should it have started like that straight after, and should we have continued down this road of a continual story arc?
Well, I remember when they did the press conference on Quantum, and it was Michael G. Wilson who said it seemed like he almost made it up on the spot, but he was like, it takes place an hour after the last film ended. It's something like that. It always seemed to me like, oh, he made it up or something, but it's like supposed to be immediately after. I liked the idea when they said it on the press conference. I was like, this is interesting, because that never happened before, right? We never had it. And forget about all the continuity that MI6 suddenly changed to a completely different building and all that. I can get over that. But I felt, for me at least, it was a bit of a letdown, that in the same way Diamonds is a letdown for me, that both Quantum and Diamonds had so much potential to be a really strong follow-up to two of the best leading ladies in Bond. Like with Diamonds, that could have been such a good revenge story on Tracy, and it wasn't, at least not in my opinion. It had nothing to do with Tracy anymore. And Quantum should have focused much more on Vesper. The ideas were there, and I love the idea of making it a follow-up. Let it start from where the other one ended. That we all said it at the time. Oh, it's going to start right where the other one ended. Interesting. But it started going into completely different spaces. About oil and a woman who got abused by some general, and all kinds of stuff goes with it. And there's never, to me, any of the depth I was hoping to see, apart from maybe the scene where he's with the martini in the plane and he's thinking and he's looking at the picture of Vesper. But No Time to Die, when you have that one scene where Bond is standing in front of Vesper's tomb and he says, "I miss you."
I miss you.
And, a little quietness. I felt like that one scene was more emotional than the entirety of Quantum of Solace was to me. That they reached it much more within that little moment. Also with the Vesper music playing, I was like, so he does still think about her after all this time. That reached me much more than with Quantum. It just felt to me, the story-wise, like a very numb experience. Like there's usually when I watch Bond, I'm like, I can't wait to get to this part or to that part. I don't really have that with Quantum. There is definitely stuff to enjoy, but it also it is partly true that we know there was a writer's strike, and when you look at the behind the scenes, they were still making scenes up when they were already filming, which usually is kind of a recipe for disaster. Not always, because they had problems during Tomorrow Never Dies as well, and I think that film turned out perfectly fine. You wouldn't know if you wouldn't know. That film just clicks story-wise. It's easy to follow and goes it's very easy to understand what is going on. And with Quantum, I feel like they bring up story elements and it doesn't go anywhere. Like he goes to the opera, he takes a picture of some of the Spectre guys, he then goes to Mathis, and Memphis is like, oh, this is Guy Haynes, and you're like, oh, maybe this is going to play a part, but then it doesn't go anywhere. Memphis may as well have said, oh, this is Homer Simpson. It doesn't matter. Nothing goes anywhere. At least it feels a little bit aggravating story-wise that it's convoluted to me, and it should have focused much more on Bond's journey with Vesper, and it does to some degree, right? We still it goes back to that in the ending, but like the majority of the movie is not about her or about Bond's journey, at least not in my opinion, as much as I was hoping it to see. And there was a second question. What was the second question again?
Well, we can get on to that later, because I wanted to come back at you with, does that, if you think you wanted to see more of the Vesper stuff, does that mean by the end of Casino Royale, you don't think he is cured of the whole hatred of Vesper and everything? Because are we not meant to think by the end of Casino Royale, that was that, he's now James Bond and he's going to go on? Obviously he wasn't.
No. He's definitely not cured at all. I mean,
he's not,
I think this film proves that he's not cured, because I thought there were three main Vesper parts in Quantum of Solace. There's in the beginning where he, steals the picture in the hideout, the obvious ones that Jeroen just put out there. But I think that there's a certain shame that he feels in feeling this way about Vesper. And this last move at the end of the film is him cutting it clean. I said in the very beginning of this discussion that this, to me, is the film that has the most significant and extreme emotional arc, because a lot of Bond films, look at the Roger Moore ones, they emotionally reset. So you could switch them around. It doesn't matter, all these things. But with this, there is no emotional reset. He's still feeling the same way. And all these type of leads that he's following down, he's trying to work his quote unquote day job, but all along he's feeling this parallel pain that he's trying to close. And so you've got a very brutal individual that is looking for revenge, but at the same time trying to do their job. And it makes this incredibly caustic, kinetic type assassin. I mean, this is what makes him the James Bond we love. And I think Skyfall was okay in finishing that off. Spectre, you even could say that he has it there. And then No Time to Die deflated it entirely. But I guess that's what happens with age when you start to lose testosterone. Allegedly.
We did have his balls bashed in, didn't he? By the Sheik.
I mean, that'll take it out of you, trust me.
I think I just mean in cinematic terms that the triumphant inverted commas ending of Casino Royale, but by doing it an hour after or whatever, you do have to confront all that, don't you? You've got to continue. Yeah. You can't ignore what's happened in the previous film.
I don't know what your thoughts are, but would it have been better if we had like the typical M scene for Quantum? Not have the sequel and you go in and get your mission from M, and you're kind of, now we're into the Bond that we know, and now we're into it, because you're on a good point. It was kind of like, okay, we've got Mr. White now. We're going to see what's going to happen now with Vesper and the revenge story. But then we're actually going to go see what happens with Green Planet and the oil and the water. And then we'll go back to Vesper at the very end and we'll try and tie that up a bit. So it was like a little bit like he kind of forgot, but as David said, he's taken it out of everyone along the way. Like whether it's, he's not going to take any BS off anyone, right? The guy holding his shirt gone, the slate gone. So like you can see through the whole story, he's taking revenge on whoever's getting in his way. But it's like nearly like separate to the whole Vesper thing. He's taken out everyone because of Vesper, but he's kind of trying to tie up at the very end by saying, drop the love knot. But I would have thought, and I would have maybe preferred just to see the whole Vesper thing done at the end of it, like, I don't know, like bringing it back up again for No Time to Die, the whole Vesper thing. Maybe as Jeroen said, if we'd done something like that back in Quantum, we might have got a bit more closure and it might have been more final, because it's, it's whatever, 13 years later, and this relationship they've had, he's still pining over it when, Bond is the kind of, not your typical Bond kind of love angle, but I would have preferred seeing it just tidied up a bit more in Quantum,
John, I agree. I think No Time to Die, we're not here to talk about it, but No Time to Die urinated all over Quantum of Solace because it was such a final end. Yes. It was so artistically done. I'm back. I'm you. I'm your agent. And then they just was like, you know what? Yeah, let's you know what? Let's throw it away. This guy's going to be damaged goods to
Yeah.
the very end.
Yeah.
It does end on a high, though, doesn't it? I mean, this film, in terms of Bond's
Yeah.
emotional journey,
Hell yeah.
I quite like the coda.
Mm.
I do like the coda because that's the end of that for me. That is definitely intended as the end of the vest. You know, you see the Algerian love knot melting in
Yeah.
the snow almost, don't you?
Congratulations, you were right.
About what?
About Vesper.
It's the last image.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I never left and all that, which
Yeah.
is really positive. Matt,
Yeah.
go on. I want to hear. Go on, more about your.
I don't know if you want to.
For those who haven't heard your
No,
piece
it's
on
good to
Bond's
hear
character
everyone's. It's good to
motivation.
hear everyone's
Yeah.
thoughts. So, I was somebody who I don't like Casino Royale as much as the average Bond fan and stuff. So the end of that I've never quite been able to think where that leaves Bond, the ending of Casino Royale, and just saying Bond, James Bond, and having the Bond theme finally on doesn't necessarily mean that he's the agent that I know and love. And I don't know where. I also didn't know where it left him in terms of his feelings about Vesper. So it didn't necessarily surprise me that this was following on from that, because I didn't think that it was all tied up, by the end of Casino Royale. So I've struggled a bit with Bond's motivations in this film, because it's sort of like he's seeking revenge, but that's green and everything wasn't anything directly to do with Vesper, and so it's almost like he's just sort of following the next clue, disobeying M, and I don't know quite where it's going, and I don't get the same satisfaction, particularly at the end. I'm just sort of personally relieved that, can you finally get over Vesper now? Because we've been going on and on and on about it.
Yeah.
Just a holiday romance, and she, ultimately as well.
Old smoothie.
Sorry. Yeah.
He screwed him over.
She screwed him over and killed herself. And I know, that's awful and everything, but I don't know. But maybe that means that it makes it a bit more murkier in terms of what Bond thinks. He doesn't know how to react and everything. But I think in terms of Bond's emotions in this, I think it's almost like a numbness that we see throughout him. We don't see him many highs or lows. And what I like about that is that I think Camille, and I know we'll probably come on to this, is possibly the best thing about this film. And I think that plays quite well, Bond against Camille, like them together, working together. And I think she's well written. I think she's well performed. And I think that it's a really good follow-up to Vesper, because I don't think audiences, and I wouldn't, if he's immediately falling in love with or not falling in love, but, really, I don't know, embrace it, like a typical Bond girl in the next film, then I don't think we'd be quite like, well, hang on, especially if it, followed on so quickly afterwards. The following on from Casino Royale, I've always wondered, and maybe, something you've actually probably answered some of it, you guys, but I've always wondered about it, because I want to know what people thought. So quite a lot of people don't like Quantum of Solace, who absolutely love Casino Royale, but I've never heard them particularly say it was a mistake to follow straight on, or it should have been a new standalone mission. Because the things I like about this film are probably the more standalone mission-y bits, that Dominic Green is an agent of Quantum, or whatever you call it, but he's got his own scheme that he's involved with, the Madrano and everything. And I really like all that. So I don't know what you guys. Sorry, Tom, I'm taking over a bit here.
No,
but
it's fine.
what do you think, or what do you think Bond fans who don't like Quantum of Solace? How do you think a lot of Bond fans wanted it to the next film after Casino Royale to start and to progress?
I don't know how they wanted to start, but they wanted Casino Royale. I think people have given themselves to Quantum only because it's like porn. They like the individual scenes, but they may not like the fact that it wasn't Casino Royale. But I have to comment on the Camille thing, because I'm so happy to hear you say that, because I've thought for a very long years that Camille's probably one of the most unique Bond women, because it's not a romantic conquest. She has her own revenge arc. But the biggest thing about Camille that nobody talks about is that her connection to Bond is not through seduction, it's through trauma. They
Yeah.
both have had trauma, and they're both on a mission. And as much as I know Green doesn't really connect with Vesper, they both are on parallel paths because of something traumatic that they're trying to cope with. I'm not trying to get all psyche here, but to me, that's refreshingly modern for the time back in 2008.
Seems we're both using Green to get to somebody.
You lost somebody?
I did, yes.
And whilst she is able to get her sort of revenge directly against Medrano, Bond has a chance to do that, doesn't he? Right at the end.
Yep.
But it's good that he follows Roger's advice from Few Eyes Only, doesn't he? He doesn't take revenge, he doesn't kill him, and I do think that's a really good ending. And that in the film, I'll be honest, Bond, he does a lot of bad things. Let's be honest. He gets Fields killed. He takes Mathis away from his paradise, his retirement home, into this world where he gets him killed. But he himself has definitely grown by the end of it, and I do believe that however bad he's behaved and people he's got killed and all that, he personally is in a better place than he was at the start of the film, at least.
Collateral damage.
Well, yeah, poor Mathis. I mean, poor Mathis, dear me.
Poor Mathis. He lived a good long life. He's older than me when he passes away. He's fine.
That's where he was found, of course, but he wasn't quite dead. He was finished off.
That's right.
I mean, we could, John, go on. Where do you lie with all this? Where it should have started, and would you have continued the story and that kind of thing?
In principle, I haven't got a problem with it starting after, as long as it complements what's gone before, and that's my issue with this. So, if we're going to go down the thing that, I mean, I like the ending to Casino Royale, but I hear a lot of like social media traits saying this is the greatest ending to any Bond film and stuff, the Casino Royale James Bond. Now, my interpretation of why people think that is because they think it's a triumphant kind of ending to say he's become the James Bond we know and love. The themes come on, he said the comment, and we pick up where we left off. But so my massive issue with this film is actually the characterization of Bond does the complete opposite of that. This is not the James Bond that we have grown used to. It might be an interpretation, but we're playing on this back that the previous film ends with him giving the illusion that we've become Bond, and then you've got this unrecognizable Bond. And Bond has been emotional throughout many James Bond films. It's not Quantum of Solace and Casino Royale, Daniel Craig, is not the first emotional interpretation of James Bond. It's a different one, but I just think it contradicts a bit of what had previously come before. I'm with Math that I like the standalone stuff, but I also think, like Math, that I'm not sure what the motivation of the film is, and I think you see the lack of a script in terms of where this is wanting to go, what this is wanting to do, and what the end point is. And whilst I do agree that yes, he finds his quantum of solace at the end, he has grown a lot, and all the rest of it, the very next film, he fakes death and quits MI6 again. And and I'm like, oh, come on. I just feel that for what is 5 films that are supposed to be linked together in their own story, there's no consistency in the story. I don't think it tells a consistent story. I think it hops back from one thing to the next. And I just find it frustrating.
You're talking about the identity crisis of the Daniel Craig arc, which we all agree. I don't think there's anybody that thinks, wow, this is the most consistent portrayal of James Bond and all. I mean, if you go back and look at the Brosnan sons, like how Brosnan does such a great job of evolving his character, even by Die Another Day, but certainly The World Is Not Enough. You could see that he's a more wizened, grown, experienced Bond, and you can see the arc, and you feel like you've grown up with him. Daniel Craig is all over the place, to the point where No Time to Die, you actually see Daniel Craig sometimes more than James Bond.
Oh, wow, David, that is absolute zinger. That
Means a
I'm
lot
here
for
for it.
David.
Yeah.
oh, patent that one. That
Don't tell him next time you see him, though. Oh dear.
Love you,
How
Daniel.
how would people have ended it differently, or would you have ended it knowing that the next one would be a clean slate in 2 years' time? John Goeghagan, go on.
Casino or Quantum? Sorry.
Well,
Which,
both or either or. Should have been a plan made, basically, like Star Wars
yeah, like I
sequels.
can
Should have been a
I can
plan.
see like why they would want to do a sequel, a direct sequel, because Casino Royale's one of the best films in the canon, right? Why not do that 20 minutes later or whatever they were trying to base it on? It probably makes sense conceptually, right? We're just going to keep going with Casino Royale 2. But I think it would have been just better just saying, okay, James Bond, take it back to a traditional Bond scene, kind of work through the whole white emotional kind of arc that he went through. We're trying to figure out what happened with Vesper, and just kind of take it back a notch there, and maybe just tie it up a little bit better in terms of the kind of tangent he went off on for the second film. But I have no problem with how Casino finished. It's just, I think conceptually they probably wanted the second part of Casino for Quantum, and they didn't really they didn't have the same people on board, or didn't have the story figured out at that stage, right? So it just meant they had to kind of make it up as they went along, and I think the whole Vesper story had to be woven in there somewhere. But I would have liked just like a clean break back into your usual Bond tropes, and start introducing some of those more, the gadgets, the Q scene, those kind of bits and pieces. I think that would have really helped the film, and have that kind of little bit more of the Bond nuances that we expect. Because they started bringing that back into Skyfall, right? They looked at Quantum and said, well, actually, hold on, we need to bring these elements back in. If they had kind of brought some of those elements a bit earlier with Quantum, I don't know why they didn't introduce some of those, but bringing Q at that stage.
You got that guy doing the Minority Report thing on the street.
yeah, but we don't have the gadgets, any of that kind of thing. Like, and it's just something like as basic as a radio and a handgun, right? In Skyfall, like it's something like that. I think it would have fitted in really well, and I think it would have brought Quantum up another notch in terms of the Bond experience. Sorry, Dave, no pun intended.
Puns
But
allowed.
what we expect from our Bond, right? Like I think of the Spectre scene when he left the bottle of champagne. When he takes the DB 10, is the DB 10? I think the Aston Martin. Anyway, he used the bottle of champagne. I think if there was an equivalent, John Smith's ale, I think, instead of champagne. That's the kind of equivalent, I think, of Quantum Spectre. I think just needed to bring some of those little nuances, a bit of the tropes, and I think they did get it in parts. I think in Quantum, they went into the hotel and he's looking around. Shoot me now, I prefer to stay in a mopey dead and stay in a morgue,
Yeah,
and then he goes into the new hotel and he's talking about them being teachers at sabbatical. That's all great stuff,
That's very Bond.
And it's that those kind of finesses. I think that if we had a little bit more of those, brings in some of those other later elements they brought in, it really would have kind of beefed up the Bond experience.
Hola, somos maestros on año sabbatical. Y nos ganamos la lotería.
Does it feel sometimes like it's the second in a trilogy that never happened? And because the commercial and critical reception of it didn't go down amazingly, they thought, right, we'll abandon that. By the time they're on to Skyfall, tastes had changed, haven't they? Whereas that's why, like David at the start said, it's almost like a side 2 or Casino Royale 1.5. I think we only say that because we didn't have a 2010 by the numbers Bond film.
Yeah.
If we'd have had that, then this would be, oh, right, that's like a bonus Bond or a one-off Bond. So I don't know whether anyone has any more opinions on that.
I mean, the only thing I'll say about the ending and continuation on from there is I'm very happy the way it ended. I do sort of wish, like many of us, they put the Vesper to bed. I mean, my gosh, it comes back in Spectre. It comes in twice in Spectre, actually, and then it comes back a bunch of times in No Time to Die. I think unnecessarily so. But I'm glad that it was sort of severed. Even that style, as much as I really like Quantum, I'm so happy with Skyfall. Skyfall to me is back to the kind of the gooey pizza, total fun, Home Alone, just enjoy it, good characterization that I wanted. And even Spectre, I've grown to like Spectre probably more and more. especially compared to, God, I know this is like I'm taken to the ball sacks, No Time to Die, but especially compared to No Time to Die was so muddled and confused that it did kind of shine a more positive light. In fact, I will say that some of the other Bond films that I've re-explored can often be made better when held against some of the poorer ones. And I think a lot of people have re-explored Quantum, even this year in the 20th anniversary of Casino Royale, because of some of their starvation of Bond material.
Yeah. That's true, I think. And one of the things we say, I think we said in the review, or we have said it many times, is particularly on the film that Daniel I can't remember what it's called now. The one that Daniel Craig did about his journey, the documentary.
Being James Bond.
Yeah, well, I thought it was that, but then I thought Joe Darlington. But yeah, it is called Being James Bond. Yeah, it is. On that, they sort of, particularly with Quantum and Spectre, they were almost seemed like they were a bit embarrassed of them. And I don't want them to do that. I want them to sort of own up to some of the faults, but embrace the good things in them too. So I do think that we should re-examine the films every so often. And like you say, when a new one comes out, we'll have different opinions on other ones as well, and comparing the different styles. Because we've got 5 Daniel Craig films, that is quite a lot, isn't it? So it's one of 5, and it's a one-off. And I think if you just treat it like that, whatever misgivings we have, and I have quite a few, come on, it is another Bond film at the end of the day. I know it's not Tomorrow Never Dies, another Bond film where you can whack it on a Saturday night with the family and, chomp on pizza and all that. But it is a different type of Bond film. And yeah, I tell you what, this and Die Another Day, I mentioned at the start, and No Time to Die, goodness me, they've given us a lot to talk about, haven't they? Goodness me. We could go on forever, couldn't you? I mean, we do go on forever. But No Time to Die, I mean, that was like an emotional experience for months and months, and I think we're still hurting from various aspects of that. But I think we are healed a bit from any misgivings we have of Quantum. Not everything fits, not everything sticks with us, but I'm glad we've got it, and I do think it has definitely gone up in my rankings and my appreciation for it, particularly after speaking to quite a few of the people involved in the filmmaking. And in fact, one thing they did say was that the writer's strike did make an impact. It wasn't so much that the script wasn't finished; it was just the script was finished, but they couldn't do anything with it. They weren't allowed to add bits or change anything from it. And a lot of the Bond decisions in the films have been made up. Oh, what looks great when you're on set, when you're on location. Let's change this. Oh, we've seen this. Let's do that. And I do think, they deserve some credit because, goodness me, what we've said, that 110 days or whatever turnaround, compare that to the 1,000, 2,000 days of nothing that we've had. That will come to an end, though. And I think fairly soon we're going to have some big pieces of news in the Bond community in terms of casting, hopefully, and the next film.
First of all, when I seen the Mathis thing, right, I thought that he was trying to mug him to look like someone had not Bond, but it had been a burglary or had been a robbery. And that's what my first impressions of it was. Because I know you went to depth on it, Tom, in your review of it, and I think it was fair enough. And I still haven't got an answer. But when I seen it originally, I was like, oh, he's just making it look like someone's mugged Mathis, essentially. It's not Bond. Who threw Mathis in the dumpster? Not his friend. Whether the details in that were correct in terms of what they intended to, I presume not. But that's how I seen it in the first instance, because there was a big reaction from some of you guys in terms of of it.
He didn't have all his credit cards and all that.
He took out his wallet. He flipped them in the dumpster. He threw out his wallet. I was like, oh, he's just making it look like he's been mugged and it's been a robbery, and that's what you do to someone maybe in a mugging and a robbery. So I had the same reaction to you guys on it.
Sorry, John, I don't want to sound facetious, but in actually making it look like a robbery, it was a mugging. That was the thing. It wasn't that he looked like it. He did.
Yeah, it was.
Oh dear! Can you imagine Roger mugging someone?
Just his best friend was doing it. The other thing I was going to ask you, Tom, because I know you're a big License to Kill fan, how do you compare License and Quantum? Because to me, I see those very similar type films, but I know License is your top one, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think I suppose the reason I like License to Kill a lot more is I think Bond is still. I agree with his morals in it. He's more annoyed at what's done to his friend and his wife Whereas the way he deals with Mathis, he is certainly not. It could have been a Mathis revenge film, couldn't it? In terms of all that. But Bond gets a lot more from Mathis than Mathis gets from Bond.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think also the tone is quite different. I know people say, "Oh, License to Kill is a bit too dark," and so it's very light in places. There are so many colourful characters and scenes. So I think, yeah, it's ultimately more satisfying. I mean, we haven't dwelt on the villain tonight. I think Green is a pretty underrated villain, but he's not Sanchez, but he's still pretty good. And I think the final act of License to Kill is one of the best action finales of any film. I think like License to Kill, the good one-off Bond films, that do have a slightly different tone to the others. You couldn't make, if there was a 91, 93 James Bond film, it wouldn't have been like License to Kill. And I think if there was a 2010 Bond film, it wouldn't have been like Quantum. It's just those extremes seem more extreme than they probably were intended to, if you know what I mean. But I like them both. I don't love Quantum yet, but I love aspects of it, and I'm willing to think that that's going to keep burning and keep going up in my world of Bond as we go along.
As negative as I have been about the film, I remember back in 2008 in art class, I made a painting about Quantum of Solace, and I still have it here, but I was struggling to find it. I just found it. I made this like back in 2008.
Lovely.
Very nice.
Somehow this was actually made in that year. It's almost 20 years old.
Wow.
And you were 6 years old when you did that?
Yeah. No, 18. But it's I still have it after all these years. So, it was still the latest Bond film. So, of course, you're still a Bond fan. So, I wasn't, again, there's nuance to every Bond film. So, yeah,
Bring that in October with you.
That's so cool.
Did anyone play the PlayStation game when it came out?
Yeah, the game as well, yeah.
The PlayStation game.
Yeah.
True.
I think it's pretty good. I haven't played it. I haven't played it, but I think it's pretty good, I think, gameplay-wise.
Yeah.
So we're asking it tie-ins and things like that, merchandise.
It also has a cutscene in the game that they actually filmed, but they didn't include in the movie.
Yeah.
Which one's that one, David?
The one with Mr. White.
Yeah.
It
was supposed to be the ending. Yeah. And he was supposed to be like a new Blofeld, I think, or something like that.
General Madrano is dead. Green as well. Congratulations.
For what? White's still missing and the organization is still out there. I need a name. The man at the opera.
Guy Haynes. I need you back, Bond.
I never left.
Now, hold on, White. They've got my name, nothing more.
Go back, show me the last part. The diagram.
I'm going inside.
We need Haynes alive. Remember that.
And also, now, at the time, I remember thinking, because the villain was called Mr. Green and Mr. Slate is sort of a color.
Yeah.
And we have Mr. White, like, this new organization is just going to be people with colors.
Reservoir Dogs.
Surnames.
Reservoir
numbers. But of course, that wasn't really it. But
very Reservoir
Dogs. They were going to do that. Yeah, exactly.
Neil Jackson told us that he was initially called Mr. Black instead of Mr. Slate.
Yeah.
So maybe they were planning something like that.
But was Mr. White coming to kill Guy Haynes? Is that the setup for the final scene? Or what was happening with Haynes?
I think it was something that, but Bond shows up instead and dispatches Mr. White.
Mr. White. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I actually have the screen use suit that the guy who Mr. White was wearing in Quantum of Solace, but it was never seen in the final film. But I have like 28 on-set pictures of him wearing it. Different poses.
Amazing.
Yeah. I'll send those over to you, Tom.
Yeah, that'd be incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think the deleted scenes of this, not that you see any, the ones that were in the script which weren't filmed, like Neil Jackson told us, he had two scenes, rather than M introducing Slate, he had them on the script where you were seeing him doing stuff, and you saw the connection to him and Bond. So it wasn't that he just came in and had a fight and that was the end of him. He was built up as a character first. So I'd love to have seen all those things filmed. And But the 2-hour Quantum would have been a masterpiece. We all know that.
I mean, so I don't want to take over anything, but if you guys have rankings, what kind of position does it come in your rankings?
Craig rankings, top Craig's.
Oh
the
top in terms of Craig's, I know.
Yeah, any would be interesting.
Yeah, I can start with that one. For me, it's actually interesting that Tom, you mentioned License to Kill. It's also my favorite. I rank that as my favorite Bond film, not because License to Kill is the best looking one. Dalton is not even my favorite Bond. Connery is. It has some cheap looks, but I think License is written the best. It's the most unique. It's to me, Quantum and License to Kill are uncomparable in writing. It's License to Kill is so much better in my opinion. Well, more better written. And while I don't want to sound too negative, but Quantum for me, my bottom ranking goes Diamonds Are Forever, Never Say Never Again, Quantum. So pretty much Quantum is near the bottom for me. Spectre I see ranked as the worst Craig more often, or now No Time to Die maybe. But for me, they're leaps above Quantum story-wise. And well, Spectre, I have respect for everyone's opinion, but to me, it's like, well, Spectre has for element you can follow the story. Frames last longer than a few seconds. You can, even if it gets weird, right, with the whole Foster brother thing or Inspector. I mean, there's a lot to debate there too. It felt like a Bond film. It felt like Craig was finally the James Bond we know in that film. In Quantum, I just have way too much issue. So unfortunately for me, that ranks very low in Bond. If you ever do a debate on License, I'm your man to defend that one. But
we've got back people who defend that film. Don't worry.
Not the fisherman's bucket hat though, surely.
No. That was a deleted scene, though. To be fair, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Rightly cut. Dear me.
By the way, I don't
wearing a bucket hat.
I don't know if you want to hear a completely opposite to put them side by side with Jeroen, but I would say that Quantum for me has become my second favorite Daniel Craig, just after Casino Royale.
Yeah.
And Jeroen, No Time to Die is better than.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah. Well.
I mean, so we're not leaving Friends, is what.
Yeah, I know it's better to me.
But I will say this: believe it or not, Quantum. Here's the weird thing, and I know you guys have heard people talk about this in the Bond community. I don't think Quantum is a better film than Skyfall, but I enjoy it more, if that makes sense. I just enjoy watching it. It just gives me it just scratches that itch. So believe it or not, Quantum for me is in my top 10 Bond films.
Wow.
Yeah.
But isn't that great about Bond fandom, right?
Yeah.
Such diverse opinions. I mean, I love that too. Like, there's people who have Die Another Day as their favorite, or Diamonds.
Yeah, there are people with the right opinions and the one with the wrong.
We'll fall out over No Time to Die being your favorite. I'll definitely fall out over that. No, that is encouraging to hear.
It'd be number 3 for me. It'd be Casino, it'd be Skyfall, and then it'd be number 3. Okay. Spectre 4, No Time to Die 5. So I think it's right there, just in the middle of the pack.
And overall, roughly?
I don't think I've probably, just outside the top 10, probably between 10 and 15, I'd say, if I haven't an official ranking, but probably between 10 and 15. Just outside the top 10.
That's
I think so. I think I'm more on the Quantum side than the License to Kill side, I think.
Right.
Can't win them all.
I can see the merits in both, but I think I'd take Quantum over License.
Actually, a good range of views, more than I intended. Actually, from this, not that I was intending to throw shade all over it, but John and Math, I know this isn't going to rank highly overall, but where do you say it ranks now in your Craig 5? Dare I ask?
It's my fourth in the Craig, just above No Time to Die.
Yeah,
we'll take it.
That might not simply say much, but
Champions League place.
Third or fourth. It's definitely grown on me from and might not believe that, having heard some of the things in the past I've said about it, but I do. I can appreciate it more now. So when I first watched No Time to Die, as angry as I was like, but at least it's not Quantum. But now I definitely don't think that. I think Quantum is a whole lot better.
Yeah.
And even though I think it's a bit of a mess in some ways, it's not the same sort of mess that No Time to Die is, and it's you know, No Time to Die is almost offensive in some of the things that it does and how it does it. So yeah, so Quantum, I'm appreciating it a lot more. Probably that and Spectre are sort of in different ways, like level. Like I appreciate different things about them, and I do think there's plenty to appreciate about both of them.
Yeah.
And your favourite Craig is Skyfall, isn't it, Matt?
It is, yeah, because I personally just find it that, I think David, you mentioned it. It's just that bit easier. It's that sort of Saturday night big blockbuster film that you can put on, and one that I think you'd be happy to put on to someone who's not watched a Bond film, or you could watch with different audiences and you could all appreciate it. And ultimately, I just find it probably the most satisfying of all his films.
Yeah, I think Quantum is a bit niche, isn't it? I wouldn't be the first one you show to a new Bond fan, because it probably doesn't reflect the rest of them as much. That doesn't mean you'd show License to Kill first either, by the way. But
no, true. No, that's true as well.
Tom, is it in your top 5 Craig films? At least?
I couldn't possibly comment there. No, I don't know. Sometimes I think it could be number 2 now. I think I can't. I think those 3, the first 3 are the best, obviously, in my view. Sometimes when I watch Skyfall, I think, oh, this is definitely the best. But then sometimes after I've thought about it, oh no, that was silly, that was ridiculous. Then Casino Royale, when I haven't watched it for ages, and I think, oh, it's too much to get through. I can't, it's so emotional. I don't really want to have to put it on. When I put it on, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the best one. Whereas Quantum, strangely like you, David, I found it really rewatchable. I don't know quite how that's happened, because it was the Bond I'd watched least until maybe 5 years ago by an absolute mile. Now I've seen it many, many times in the last few years, and I love it. I do really appreciate it. So I'd probably, it's second equal with Skyfall, probably.
Wow, it's impressive. There's a friend of mine who did not like Quantum originally, and he said that has now become his airplane Bond. So every time he's on a flight, he says it's just a nice, quick thing before dinner is served, or maybe after dinner is served before he falls asleep. And he said he just puts it on and he can, two screen it. He doesn't have to pay too much attention to it. That's his film.
Well, if you hear our review, Rob says that after seeing the film, he was looking forward. He was on a plane, I think, to Africa last year. Was it Kenya he went to? Anyway, after seeing Quantum, he's like, oh, can't wait. Apparently this plane is the same one. They've got that bar. Oh, can't wait to go in at night and in the dark and all cozy. He said all that happened was there was an announcement, right, the bar's open, and all the men just ran to the bar. Massive queue. And then after about an hour of waiting, Rob was like, I'm not really in the mood for this anymore. I don't think the reality was quite as Bond-like as it was in the film.
It never is.
No. But brilliant, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We've really enjoyed this, and I think it'll open up the debate wider, of course, when people watch this. We'll always be debating these films, won't we? And discussing the various things and the plot points and James Bond's character, the editing decisions, the direction. Yeah, I'm pleased that Quantum does have a place of love in so many Bond fans' hearts. And if you go on the comments, I know you'll always see abuse and vitriol at it. You will do for quite a few of the Bond films, but don't worry about that. If you love it, own it. So that's my closing comments, guys. But thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we'll be doing more, like I say, in a couple of years when it's 20 years old. And I'm sure, David, you've got a screening of it, haven't you, coming up?
Two. So I've got one that I'm doing an entire weekend around. It's a weekend celebration of Quantum of Solace filled with surprises. And a lot of people are coming who want to give it another whirl.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you who's doing it right is when I'm going to Australia for a month. And the boys down under are putting together a back-to-back casino quantum celebration for the 20th anniversary. And we have a 20-minute leeway in between each one to grab a drink in between the films. And most of the theater who's purchased tickets, I think it's sold out now, have never seen it back-to-back. So I'm really curious about what their takeaway is. I mean, I'll probably go into the whole spiel about how, hey, look, it's a Bond thing. He's reckless, he's cold, he's detached, he's brutal. But even from a visceral standpoint, pure joy, I'm really curious to see what the audience thinks of it as one long movie.
That will be interesting, won't it? Other than the haircuts changing, but the sort of tone of it.
Just a little.
Yeah, and the cars. Yeah, I'm not sure it takes 20 minutes to get from Lake Como to... oh, no, it is Lake Garda, to be fair.
Lake Garda. But by the way, maybe, I mean, is there any conclusion to this debate? I mean, it sounds like we all loved it.
Yeah, I think those of us who are a little bit more negative have listened to the concise, well-reasoned arguments of those who are...
All the Johns love it. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
John Kell's face. Thank you. So that's brilliant.
Thank you, guys.
Brilliant.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.